Marcus Chun had always been told he was lucky to be selected for the Galactic Academy. Out of billions of humans across dozens of colony worlds, only 12 students were chosen each cycle to attend the prestigious institution on Kepler Station. The Academy trained the galaxy's future diplomats, military officers, and explorers from over 40 different species. For a farm boy from Earth's agricultural colony of New Manitoba, it should have been the opportunity of a lifetime. 3 months into his first year, Marcus was beginning to wonder if luck had anything to do with it. The morning started like any other in combat theory class. Professor Zach Th, a towering Kethani with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with his mood, was demonstrating basic defensive maneuvers to the mixed species class of 30 students. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lights as he moved with fluid grace despite his imposing 8-foot frame. Today we examine the concept of pain tolerance across species, Professor Zach Th announced, his translator device converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. Different evolutionary paths have produced vastly different responses to physical trauma. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat between Lyra, a crystalline Veltar whose body chimed softly when she moved, and Grontok, a bear-like Ursinian whose thick fur constantly shed despite the climate controls. Around them sat representatives of species from across known space. The ethereal Zephyrians who seemed to float rather than sit, the insectoid Mantari with their compound eyes, and the aquatic Delpani in their mobile water suits. The Veltar, for instance, Zach Th continued, gesturing toward Lyra, experience pain as a musical discord. Unpleasant, certainly, but their crystalline nervous system allows them to mentally tune out minor discomfort. Lyra's surface shimmered with what Marcus had learned was embarrassment. The Ursinians, he said, nodding to Grontok, possess remarkable pain tolerance due to their predatory heritage. A broken bone might not even slow them down in combat. Grontok rumbled with what might have been pride. Zach Th's skin began shifting to a darker green, which Marcus had learned indicated amusement among the Kethani. And then, we have humans, he said, his 4 eyes focusing on Marcus and the 2 other human students in the class. Perhaps the most fascinating case study in the Academy's database. Marcus felt his stomach clench. He had been at the Academy long enough to know that when professors focused on humans, it rarely ended well for them. Humans, Zach Th continued, his mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among his species, are perhaps the most fragile species we've encountered that somehow managed to achieve spaceflight. Their homeworld is classified as a Class 7 death world, barely habitable by galactic standards. Yet somehow, these soft, slow creatures with their liquid-filled bodies and brittle calcium bones manage to not only survive but thrive. A few students chittered or hummed their species' equivalent of laughter. Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks. Their pain response is particularly amusing, Zach Th said, his skin now a deep emerald that signaled full entertainment mode. Humans will cry from something as simple as stubbing their soft, unprotected toes. They require medical attention for what other species consider minor scratches. They can be incapacitated by something as simple as consuming the wrong food. Marcus clenched his fists under his desk. He had heard variations of this lecture before, not just from Zach Th, but from other professors and students. Humans were the joke species of the galaxy, too weak to be warriors, too fragile to be explorers, too emotional to be proper diplomats. They were tolerated in the Academy more as curiosities than legitimate students. To demonstrate, Zach Th said, his skin now practically glowing with amusement. Perhaps our human students would like to show the class their legendary fragility? The classroom fell silent. Marcus could feel 30 pairs of alien eyes focusing on him and his 2 classmates. Sarah Kim, a girl from the Mars colonies, had gone pale. David Okafor from the Titan station was staring at his desk, clearly hoping to avoid attention. Come now, Zach Th pressed. Surely one of Earth's finest can demonstrate for the class? It's all in the name of science, after all. Marcus found himself standing before he realized he had made the decision. What exactly are you asking us to do, Professor? Zach TH's mandibles spread wide in what Marcus had learned was the Kethani equivalent of grin. Oh, nothing too demanding for such delicate creatures. Perhaps a simple strike to the face? Among my people, it would barely register as a love tap. The classroom erupted in various forms of alien laughter. Grontok's rumbling chuckle seemed almost apologetic, but the Mantari were clicking their approval loudly. Even the usually peaceful Zephyrians seemed to shimmer with amusement. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. He looked around the classroom, seeing not fellow students, but an audience waiting for entertainment. For 3 months, he had endured the subtle condescension, the assumed weakness, the constant reminders that humans didn't belong among the real species of the galaxy. Are you asking me to let you hit me, Professor? Marcus asked quietly. Oh, nothing so crude, Zach DH replied, his skin shifting to a pleased purple. Simply a demonstration of comparative physiology. A light tap that wouldn't affect any proper species, but would likely devastate a human. Educational, you understand. Marcus looked at his classmates again. Sarah was shaking her head slightly, clearly begging him not to do whatever he was thinking. David had his head down, refusing to meet his eyes. But around them, the alien students were leaning forward with interest. This was going to be the entertainment of their day, watching the human break down from a little pain. I understand completely, Professor, Marcus said, walking toward the front of the class. You want to show everyone how weak humans are compared to real species. Precisely, Zach TH exclaimed, clearly delighted that Marcus was being so cooperative. Such quick understanding. Perhaps humans are more intelligent than they appear. Marcus positioned himself in front of the professor's desk, facing the class. And this is all for science, correct? To help everyone understand human physiology? Indeed. Now, brace yourself, young human. This may be quite overwhelming for some of your species. Zach TH raised one of his 4 arms, flexing his chin in his fingers. Among his people, it would indeed be considered a gentle tap. For a human, it would probably break bones. I'm ready, Professor, Marcus said. The strike came faster than most of the class could follow. Zach TH's arm moved with practiced precision, his fist connecting with Marcus's nose with a wet crack that echoed through the classroom. The impact lifted Marcus off his feet and sent him sprawling backward onto the floor. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then, the blood started flowing. Marcus lay on his back, feeling the warm wetness spreading across his face. His nose was definitely broken. He could feel the bones grinding against each other when he breathed. His vision was blurry from the impact, and there was a high-pitched ringing in his ears. But he could still hear the classroom erupting in alien laughter. Fascinating, Zach TH exclaimed, his skin now a brilliant yellow of scientific curiosity. Notice how the human soft tissue splits so easily. And look at the volume of that crimson fluid. Their circulatory system is remarkably inefficient. Marcus slowly sat up, blood streaming down his face and onto his uniform. The metallic taste filled his mouth, and he could feel his left eye starting to swell shut. But more than the physical pain was the sound of the laughter around him. The human is leaking, one of the Mantari students chittered. How do they survive with such poor structural integrity? Look how it shakes, observed a Zephyrian in its musical voice. The trauma response is quite dramatic. Grontok wasn't laughing. Marcus noticed through his blurry vision. Neither were Sarah or David. But most of the class was treating his injury like an amusing science demonstration. Now, observe how long it takes for the human to recover. Zach TH continued, making notes on his datapad. Among the Kethani, such a blow would barely interrupt a conversation. The human, however, appears to be incapacitated by what amounts to a gentle correction. Marcus wiped blood from his eyes and slowly got to his feet. His nose was sending sharp spikes of pain through his skull with every heartbeat, and he could feel his face swelling rapidly. But he was standing. Remarkable resilience, Zach TH noted. Perhaps humans are slightly more durable than initial assessment suggested. May I go to the medical bay, Professor? Marcus asked, his voice thick from the blood and swelling. Of course, of course. Document the healing process, would you? I'm sure the medical staff will find it quite illuminating to see how long it takes human tissue to repair itself. Marcus nodded and walked toward the door, leaving drops of blood on the pristine academy floor. Behind him, he could hear Zach TH launching into a detailed explanation of human bone density compared to other species. The walk to the medical bay felt like the longest of his life. Students from other species moved aside when they saw him coming, some with expressions of disgust, others with curiosity. A few even took pictures with their personal devices. Marcus kept his head up and his shoulders straight, even though every step made his face throb. Dr. Velnari, the Academy's head physician, was a Veltar whose crystalline form refracted the medical bay's lights into gentle rainbows. She examined Marcus with professional efficiency, her touch sending harmonic vibrations through his bones that somehow eased the pain. Significant nasal fracture, she noted in her chiming voice. Orbital bruising consistent with blunt force trauma. Was this some sort of training accident? Educational demonstration? Marcus replied. Dr. Velnari's surface dimmed, which Marcus had learned indicated concern among her people. I see. Well, the bone can be reset and the tissue regenerated. You'll be fully healed in approximately 72 hours with our medical technology. As the doctor worked, using advanced nanobots to repair his broken nose and reduce the swelling, Marcus stared at his reflection in the medical bay's mirror. His face was a mess of purple bruises and dried blood, but his eyes were clear and angry. Dr. Velnari, he said quietly, what do you know about human medical records? Not extensively, she admitted, her harmonics taking on a puzzled tone. Human physiology is quite different from most species. Why do you ask? I was wondering about our healing rates. Compared to other species. The doctor paused in her work, accessing her medical database through her neural interface. Interesting question. Let me see, oh my, what is it? According to these records, humans actually heal remarkably quickly for a species without natural regenerative capabilities. Most species with similar biology would take weeks to recover from this level of trauma without technological assistance. Marcus nodded slowly. And pain tolerance? Well, that's even more interesting. Humans appear to have a unique relationship with pain. While you do experience it acutely, you also seem capable of functioning through levels of discomfort that would incapacitate many other species. But we're considered fragile. Dr. Velnari's chimes took on a confused resonance. The classification seems inconsistent with the data. Humans come from what the Academy classifies as a Class 7 death world, yet you're treated as if you're from a garden world. It's quite puzzling. Marcus left the medical bay 3 hours later with a perfectly healed nose and a head full of questions. He looked completely normal again, thanks to the Academy's advanced medical technology. But something had changed during those 3 hours of treatment and conversation with Dr. Velnari. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, Marcus began to wonder if the problem wasn't that humans were too weak for the galaxy. Maybe the problem was that the galaxy had no idea what humans actually were. That evening, he sat in his small dormitory room, accessing the Academy's database through his personal terminal. He had never bothered to look up Earth's classification before. He had simply accepted what everyone told him about his homeworld being barely habitable. What he found made his blood run cold. Earth wasn't just classified as a Class 7 death world. It was classified as a Class 12 death world, one of only 3 known planets in the galaxy with that designation. The other 2 were uninhabitable even with environmental suits. According to the files, Earth's gravity was 2.3 times galactic standard. Its atmosphere contained oxygen at levels that were toxic to most species. Its weather patterns were described as catastrophically violent. Its native wildlife was classified as universally hostile, and humans had evolved there, not just survived, but thrived well enough to eventually reach the stars. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. If the Academy's own database said his homeworld was essentially hell, Why was everyone treating humans like delicate flowers? He thought about the laughter in the classroom that morning, about the casual assumption that a light tap from Professor Zach TH would devastate him, about 3 months of being treated like an inferior species. Marcus pulled up the Academy's training schedules and requirements. What he found there made him smile for the first time in days. According to Academy regulations, all students were required to meet the same physical standards regardless of species. The same standards that humans were supposedly too weak to achieve. Yet here he was. Here Sarah and David were. Here were 12 humans every cycle, somehow managing to meet standards that they were allegedly too fragile to handle. Marcus spent the rest of the evening reading everything he could find about human capabilities versus galactic standards. The picture that emerged was not at all what he had been led to believe. The next morning, Marcus walked into combat theory class with a different attitude entirely. His nose was perfect again, showing no signs of the previous day's violence. Several students looked at him with surprise. They had probably expected him to be in the medical bay for days. Professor Zach TH's skin shifted to an annoyed orange when he saw Marcus take a seat. "Ah, young human. I trust your injuries have been properly treated." "Completely healed, Professor," Marcus replied cheerfully. "Ready for today's lesson?" "Excellent. Today we'll be covering advanced combat techniques. Perhaps you'd prefer to observe rather than participate?" Yesterday's demonstration showed how easily humans can be overwhelmed. Marcus stood up. "Actually, Professor, I was hoping you might be willing to continue yesterday's educational demonstration." The classroom fell silent. Zach TH's skin shifted through several colors rapidly: surprise, confusion, and, finally, amusement. "I hardly think that's necessary, young human. I believe we adequately demonstrated your species' limitations yesterday." "But, Professor," Marcus said, walking toward the front of the class again, "I've been reading the Academy's database, and I think there might have been some misunderstanding about human capabilities. I'd like to clarify things for the class." Zach TH's mandibles clicked with pleasure. The human had apparently learned nothing from yesterday's humiliation. This would be even more entertaining. "Very well," the professor said. "What sort of clarification did you have in mind?" Marcus smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Well, Professor, yesterday you mentioned that your people consider a blow like that to be a love tap. I was wondering, since humans are supposedly so much weaker than Kethani, if you'd be willing to let me demonstrate human combat techniques on you." The laughter that erupted from the class was even louder than yesterday. The idea of a soft, weak human trying to fight a Kethani warrior was apparently the funniest thing they had ever heard. But Professor Zach TH wasn't laughing. His skin had gone very, very still. Marcus continued smiling. "After all, if humans are as fragile as you say, then surely I couldn't possibly hurt someone as strong as you, right? It would be perfectly safe." Professor Zach TH found himself in a trap of his own making. If he refused, he would look cowardly in front of his students. If he agreed, he would be letting a human strike him, which was beneath his dignity. But the human had a point. If humans were as weak as he claimed, what harm could one possibly do? "Very well," Zach TH said finally. "But I hardly think your soft fists will provide much of a demonstration." "Oh, I wasn't planning to use my fists, Professor." Marcus walked over to the equipment rack, where various training weapons were displayed. He selected a standard combat staff, 2 meters of reinforced polymer designed to simulate real weapons while being safe for Academy training. "I thought I might demonstrate some human weapons techniques instead." Now Professor Zach TH looked genuinely concerned. "Young human, I don't think you understand what you're suggesting. These weapons require significant strength and training to use effectively." "Don't worry, Professor. You said yesterday that humans cry from stubbing their toes. Surely anything I do with this stick will just tickle someone as strong as you." Marcus hefted the staff, testing its weight and balance. It was actually lighter than the tools he had used on his family's farm back on New Manitoba. All those years of manual labor and Earth's crushing gravity had built muscles that the Academy's fitness tests didn't really measure. "Are you ready, Professor? I promise to be as gentle with you as you were with me." The class was silent now, sensing that something had shifted. This wasn't going to be a repeat of yesterday's humiliation. The human was different today, calmer, more focused, and somehow much more dangerous. Professor Zach TH raised his forearms defensively, his skin shifting to the deep red of combat readiness. Very well, human. Show us what your species considers combat prowess. Marcus nodded politely. Then he moved. What happened next will be talked about in Academy corridors for years to come. Marcus didn't swing the staff like the clumsy amateur everyone expected. He moved like someone who had been born with a tool in his hands, because on Earth, that was essentially true. The first strike caught Professor Zach TH completely off guard. Marcus spun the staff with practiced ease, bringing it around in a perfect arc that connected with the Kethone's lower left arm. The crack of breaking chitin echoed through the classroom. Zach TH roared in pain and surprise, his skin flashing through every color in the spectrum. He swung his 3 remaining arms at Marcus, but the human was already moving. Years of dodging farm equipment and high gravity had given Marcus reflexes that no academy training could match. The second strike shattered Zach TH's upper right arm. The third caught him across the thorax, and the class heard something that sounded suspiciously like ribs breaking. By the time Professor Zach TH collapsed to the floor, his skin had gone completely white, the Kethane color of shock and terror. Marcus stood over him, not even breathing hard, still holding the staff in a ready position. You know, Professor, I think you might have been wrong about human fragility. The classroom was dead silent. 30 alien students stared at the scene in complete shock. Their supposedly invincible professor was curled on the floor, 2 arms clearly broken, while the fragile human stood over him looking barely winded. You see, Marcus continued conversationally, I looked up some interesting facts last night. Did you know that Earth has gravity 2.3 times galactic standard? That means every human here has been carrying around more than twice their body weight their entire lives. He gestured to his classmates with the staff. Did you know that Earth's atmosphere is so oxygen-rich it's actually toxic to most species? That our weather is classified as catastrophically violent? That our planet is one of only 3 worlds in the galaxy with a Class 12 death world rating? Sarah and David were staring at him with their mouths open. But Marcus wasn't done yet. Most interesting of all, Professor, I learned that humans have something called persistence hunting. We're persistence predators. Do you know what that means? Professor Zach TH groaned from the floor, his skin flickering weakly. It means that on Earth, humans don't just survive. We hunt. We chase our prey until it collapses from exhaustion, and then we kill it. We're not the prey on our world, Professor. We're the apex predators. Marcus set the staff back on the equipment rack and walked toward the door. I'll be in my next class if anyone needs me. Professor, you might want to visit the medical bay. I hear Dr. Valnari is very good with broken bones. As the door closed behind him, Marcus could hear the classroom erupting in frantic chatter. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he was looking forward to tomorrow's classes. After all, he had a reputation to establish. The word spread through the academy faster than a plasma fire in a recycling center. The human had broken Professor Zach TH. Not just defeated him, actually broken 2 of his arms and put him in the medical bay for emergency surgery. By dinner time, Marcus found himself the center of attention in the dining hall. Students from dozens of species were staring at him as he carried his tray to an empty table. Some looks were curious, others fearful, but none showed the casual dismissal he had grown accustomed to. Sarah and David joined him, both looking somewhere between amazed and terrified. Marcus, Sarah whispered, what the hell happened to you? You've never acted like that before. I stopped pretending to be something I'm not, Marcus replied, cutting into his synthesized protein with more force than necessary. I'm tired of being everyone's favorite joke. But you could have killed him, David protested. Professor Zach TH is a trained warrior among his people. And I'm a farm boy from a death world, Marcus replied. Apparently, that means something different than I thought. As they ate, Marcus noticed more and more students glancing in their direction. Word was spreading, and with it, a fundamental shift in how humans were perceived at the Academy. But Marcus knew this was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new assumptions to shatter, and new opportunities to show the galaxy what humans really were. He smiled as he finished his dinner. For the first time in 3 months, he was excited to find out what would happen next. The revolution had begun, and it was being led by a farm boy with a broken nose and a very clear understanding of what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had seriously underestimated his species. The news of Professor Zach Th's defeat spread through the Academy's neural networks faster than Marcus could walk to his next class. By the time he entered advanced xenobiology, taught by Dr. Thexera, a serpentine naga with 6 arms and scales that shifted color with her emotions, every student in the room was staring at him. Dr. Thexera's scales were a deep blue of professional curiosity as she watched Marcus take his usual seat. "Mr. Chun," she said in her sibilant voice, "I understand you provided quite the educational demonstration in Professor Zach Th's class this morning. Just clarifying some misconceptions about human physiology, Dr." Marcus replied calmly. Indeed, her scales shifted to an intrigued purple. "Perhaps you would be willing to share some of those clarifications with this class? We were, coincidentally, scheduled to discuss predator-prey relationships in extreme environments today." Marcus looked around the classroom. Unlike combat theory, xenobiology attracted a different type of student: the researchers, scientists, and future explorers rather than warriors. Their expressions ranged from fascination to concern, but none showed the casual mockery he had endured for months. "I'd be happy to contribute to the discussion, Doctor." Dr. Thexera activated the classroom's holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of known space with various worlds highlighted in different colors. As you can see, the galaxy contains many different categories of worlds. Green indicates garden worlds, paradises with gentle climates and abundant resources. Yellow shows standard habitable worlds. Orange marks challenging environments. She paused, her scales shifting to an almost reverent gold. Red indicates what we classify as death worlds, planets so hostile that they actively try to kill anything living on them. The display zoomed in on a small section of space, highlighting 3 worlds that pulsed with an ominous crimson glow. Only 3 worlds in known space carry the Class 12 Death World designation. Kethtar Prime, homeworld of Professor Zach Th's people, is one of them. Its surface temperature varies between 200 and 400 degrees Celsius, and its atmosphere is composed primarily of sulfuric acid vapor. Several students shuddered at the description. The Kethani were known throughout the galaxy as perhaps the most physically dangerous species in space. The second is Gorthak, a world of perpetual earthquakes and volcanic activity where the dominant life forms are silicon-based predators that could digest metal. Dr. Thexera's scales shifted to a confused orange as she highlighted the third world. The third is Earth. The classroom fell silent. Marcus felt every alien eye in the room focusing on him again, but this time with something approaching or rather than amusement. "This presents us with an interesting paradox," Dr. Thexera continued. "How does a species from a Class 12 Death World appear to be so fragile?" A student near the back, a crystalline Veltar named Kawaitichura, chimed a question. "Perhaps humans are not native to Earth? Maybe they colonized it later in their development." "An interesting theory," the doctor replied, "but genetic analysis confirms humans evolved on Earth over millions of years. Mr. Chun, perhaps you could enlighten us about conditions on your homeworld?" Marcus stood, his mind racing through memories of growing up on New Manitoba, one of humanity's more gentle colony worlds. Even that supposedly peaceful farming planet had been more dangerous than most students here could imagine. "Well," he began, "I grew up on New Manitoba, which is actually considered one of our safer worlds. The gravity, there's only 1.1 times Earth standard. We consider that light gravity." He could hear several students gasp at the casual mention of gravity higher than galactic standard. "The atmosphere has an oxygen content of about 21%, which we've learned is toxic to most species. The weather. Marcus paused, remembering the storms that could flatten buildings. Weather on colony worlds is usually calmer than Earth. We only had tornadoes during storm season, and they rarely exceeded 200 kilometers per hour. A Zephyrian student, whose gaseous form was barely held together by its environmental suit, made a sound like wind through crystal chimes. Impossible. No biological organism could survive in such conditions. The wildlife was fairly tame too, Marcus continued. Mostly Earth-imported species and some adapted local fauna. The predators rarely got bigger than the size of a small shuttle, and the poison levels in native plants were manageable with proper equipment. Dr. Thexera's scales had shifted to a fascinated silver. Mr. Chun, you described conditions that would require full environmental suits for most species as if they were a pleasant garden. Because to humans, they are, Marcus replied. Doctor, may I ask what the average gravity on Naga homeworlds is? Approximately 0.7 galactic standard, she answered. And atmospheric composition? Nitrogen and argon with trace gases. Oxygen content is maintained at 0.003%. Any higher would be fatal to my people. Marcus nodded. On Earth, oxygen makes up 21% of the atmosphere. Humans don't just tolerate it, we require it. Our entire metabolism is built around processing what you consider a toxic gas. He walked to the holographic display, pointing at the 3 red worlds. Every species in the galaxy looks at death worlds and sees places where life shouldn't exist. But humans don't see death worlds. We see home. A Mantari student clicked its mandibles nervously. But human behavior suggests extreme fragility. You react dramatically to minor injuries, require medical attention for simple trauma. Do we? Marcus asked. Or do we just experience pain differently? He thought back to his conversation with Dr. Velnari. Doctor, yesterday, I had my nose broken by Professor Zaktiich. How long would a typical species require to heal from such an injury without medical intervention? Doktor Teara konsultet her datapat. Most species would require 15 to 20 local days for bone regeneration, assuming no complications. Humans heal from broken bones in 6 to 8 weeks, roughly 45 days. But we remain functional during that healing process. We work, fight, and continue normal activities with injuries that would hospitalize other species. Marcus gestured to his face, which showed no signs of yesterday's trauma. But, more importantly, we don't just heal. We adapt. Every injury makes us stronger. Every stress makes us more resilient. Human bones actually become denser and stronger after being broken and healed. The room was completely silent now. Even Dr. Thexera seemed to be processing this information with difficulty. You're describing physiological adaptation that borders on regeneration, she said slowly. Most species heal by returning to their original state. You're claiming humans improve beyond their baseline. It's called adaptation, Marcus said. And it doesn't just apply to physical trauma. Humans adapt to radiation levels that would sterilize other species. We adapt to atmospheric compositions that would poison most life. We adapt to gravity that would crush other organisms. He pulled up his personal file on the classroom system. I've been at this academy for 3 months. When I arrived, I could barely manage the standard physical requirements. According to my fitness assessments, I've improved by 47% since then. How is that possible? Asked Grontok, the Ursinian who had been in combat theory class. The academy environment is designed to maintain baseline fitness, not improve it. Marcus smiled grimly. Because for a human, the academy environment is like a vacation resort. Controlled temperature, perfect atmospheric composition, regulated gravity, no weather, no predators, abundant food, and complete safety. My body thinks it's in paradise, so it's actually recovering from a lifetime of survival stress. Dr. Thexera's scales shifted through several colors before settling on a deep purple of scientific excitement. Class, we are witnessing something unprecedented. We have a species that not only survived on a Class 12 death world, but was shaped by it into something beyond our normal biological models. She turned back to Marcus. Mr. Chin, I must ask, if humans are as resilient as you suggest, why do you react so strongly to pain? Why the apparent fragility? Marcus thought about how to explain something that humans took for granted. Pain is information. When a human gets hurt, we don't just experience discomfort. We analyze it, categorize it, and use it to prevent future injury. We react strongly because our survival depends on learning from every instance of damage. He gestured around the classroom. Most species here evolved as prey animals or in stable environments. When you feel pain, your instinct is to flee or hide. Humans evolved as persistent predators on a world trying to kill us every day. When we feel pain, we get angry, and we use that anger to eliminate the threat. That explains yesterday's demonstration, Grontok rumbled. Professor Zach Th thought he was showing human weakness. Instead, he was teaching you to identify him as a threat. Exactly. And once humans identify something as a threat to our survival, we don't stop until that threat is neutralized. Dr. Thexera was frantically taking notes on her datapad. This changes everything we thought we knew about human psychology. You're not fragile at all. You're hyper-vigilant apex predators with advanced healing capabilities. A new voice spoke from the back of the classroom. Is that why humans are so emotional? Marcus looked toward the speaker, a floating Zephyrian whose gaseous form shimmered with curiosity. Emotional? Human responses to situations are intense. Other species find human emotional displays disturbing. Marcus considered this. He had noticed that his reactions to things often seemed to surprise his alien classmates. Humans feel things deeply because on Earth, the difference between life and death often comes down to how quickly and intensely you can respond to changing conditions. What you call emotional, we call survival instinct. But humans cry, the Zephyrian persisted. Even from happiness, no other species exhibits such behavior. Tears serve multiple purposes, Marcus explained. They clean and lubricate our eyes, but they also serve as a social signal. When a human cries, it tells other humans that something important is happening, either a threat that requires group response or a positive event worth celebrating. Dr. Thexera was now actively recording the conversation. You're describing a species with social bonding mechanisms designed for extreme survival situations. Humans are pack hunters, Marcus confirmed. We survived by working together, sharing information, and protecting each other. That's why human emotions seem intense to other species. They're designed to rapidly communicate survival-critical information to our group. A Mantari student clicked thoughtfully. This suggests human weakness is actually a form of advanced communication. More than that, Marcus said, it suggests that everything you think you know about humans is wrong. The chime indicating the end of class period sounded, but nobody moved. Dr. Thexera's scales were now shifting through rapid patterns of silver and gold, extreme scientific excitement. Mr. Chun, she said, I would like to request permission to conduct a full physiological and psychological evaluation of human capabilities. With proper documentation, this could revolutionize our understanding of Deathworld evolution. Marcus gathered his materials, considering the request. I'd be willing to participate, Doctor, but I think you should know everything I've told you today. I'm probably the weakest human in this academy. The classroom erupted in startled sounds from a dozen different species. Impossible, doctor, te arabiretet. I grew up on a farm on one of humanity's gentlest colony worlds, Marcus explained. Sarah Kim grew up in the underground cities of Mars, where the radiation levels would kill most species in hours. David Okafor is from Titan Station, where the gravity is so light that humans have to wear weighted clothing to prevent muscle atrophy, and the atmospheric pressure would cause most aliens to explode. He paused at the door, looking back at the stunned classroom. And the really dangerous humans? They don't leave Earth. The ones that do leave are considered too soft for Earth conditions. As Marcus left the classroom, he could hear Dr. Thexera's excited voice beginning an impromptu lecture on predator evolution. But his mind was already focused on his next class, Advanced Military Strategy, taught by Commander Rextai of the Dominion Fleet. Marcus had a feeling that class was going to be very interesting. The walk to the military strategy classroom took Marcus through the Academy's central plaza, a vast open space designed to accommodate students from species with widely varying environmental needs. The ceiling was a massive, transparent dome that provided natural light while filtering out radiation harmful to the more delicate species. As he walked, Marcus noticed the change in how other students were reacting to him. Instead of the casual dismissal he had grown used to, he was getting careful nods of respect from some students, while others gave him a wide berth. Word was definitely spreading about the morning's events. Near the center of the plaza, Marcus encountered a group of senior students clustered around a hovering display showing Academy combat rankings. These were fourth-year students, the elite of the Academy, representing species from across the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Well, said a voice from the group. If it isn't the famous human. Marcus turned to see Vextar, a senior Kethanese student and nephew of Professor Zakhtich. Like his uncle, Vextar was massive and intimidating, his chitinous exoskeleton bearing the scars of ceremonial combat traditional among his people. His skin was currently the deep red of anger. Vextar, Marcus acknowledged calmly. You have brought shame upon my family, the Kethani hissed, his four arms flexing menacingly. My uncle lies in the medical bay because of your treachery. The other senior students formed a rough circle around them. Marcus recognized most of them. Sikithar, a Mantari whose clan controlled several mining worlds. Yathera, a Naga from one of the Serpentine Empire's most influential families. And Zethkeo, an Ursinian whose size dwarfed even Grontok. Treachery? Marcus asked. Your uncle challenged me to a demonstration. I demonstrated. You attacked an instructor with a weapon. Sikithar clicked angrily. Such behavior is unacceptable from an inferior species. Marcus felt that familiar cold settle in his stomach. Inferior. You know what you are, human, Yathera said, her scales shifting to the aggressive orange of her species. A joke species from a backwater world. Your little display this morning was amusing, but it changes nothing. My uncle was caught off guard, Vextar added. It won't happen again. None of us will underestimate human deception in the future. Marcus looked around the circle of senior students. They were all larger than him, all from species that had been conquering and dominating the galaxy for millennia. By every measure the Academy taught, they were superior to him in every way. But Marcus was beginning to understand that the Academy's measures were incomplete. You're right, he said quietly. It won't happen again. Vextar's skin shifted to a pleased purple. Good. You understand your place. No, Marcus continued. It won't happen again because next time, I won't hold back. The circle of students went very still. You see, Marcus said, his voice remaining conversational, your uncle made one crucial mistake yesterday. He assumed that because humans look weak, we actually are weak. But you've had the benefit of hearing about yesterday's lesson. You know better. He gestured toward the Academy rankings display. According to this, you five represent the strongest students in the Academy. Elite warriors from the galaxy's most powerful species. But here's what's interesting about that ranking system. Marcus called up the ranking criteria on the display. Physical strength, reaction time, weapons proficiency, tactical knowledge. All very impressive measurements. But there's something missing. What could possibly be missing? Kithar demanded. Killer instinct. The words hung in the air like a challenge. The senior students exchanged glances, unsure how to respond to such an outrageous statement from a first-year human. You want to know the difference between your species and mine? Marcus continued. You evolved to be strong. We evolved to survive. You learned to fight for honor, territory, and dominance. We learned to kill because anything that didn't kill us we had to kill first. Vextar took a step forward, looming over Marcus. Bold words for someone so small. Size doesn't matter when you're dead, Marcus replied. And that's the fundamental difference between us. You see combat as a contest with rules and honor. Humans see it as a problem to be solved permanently. Euthera's scales shifted to an uncertain yellow. You speak of killing as if it's routine. On Earth, everything kills, Marcus said. The weather kills. The plants kill. The animals kill. The bacteria kill. Even the air can kill if you're not careful. Humans don't just survive in that environment. We dominate it. Do you know why? He didn't wait for an answer. Because we don't just adapt to threats. We eliminate them. Permanently. Every predator that threatened humanity is now extinct or endangered. Every disease that could kill us has been conquered or controlled. Every environmental hazard has been overcome or avoided. Marcus gestured to the academy around them. You see this place as a school for warriors. I see it as a nature preserve for species too weak to handle the real universe. ZFKO, who had been silent during the exchange, finally spoke in his deep rumble. Those are grave accusations, human. Are they? Marcus asked. When was the last time any of your species faced an existential threat? When did you last have to fight for your very survival as a people? The silence stretched uncomfortably. These were the children of galactic nobility, raised in safety and comfort on worlds that had been pacified for millennia. Humans have been in space for less than 2 centuries, Marcus continued, but we've already established colonies on dozens of worlds that your species consider uninhabitable. We don't terraform planets. We adapt to them. We don't avoid hostile environments. We thrive in them. Vextar's skin was shifting rapidly between anger and confusion. If humans are as dangerous as you claim, why does the Academy limit your enrollment? Why are you treated as a minor species? Marcus smiled, and for the first time, there was something genuinely frightening in the expression. Because the galaxy isn't ready for unlimited human expansion. The Academy exists to keep us controlled, contained, and convinced that we're inferior. He gestured around the plaza, where students from dozens of species were going about their daily routines in perfect safety and comfort. But it's not working anymore. Every human who comes here learns the same thing I learned yesterday. We're not the weakest species in the galaxy. We're the most dangerous. And we've been playing by everyone else's rules for far too long. The circle of senior students was no longer looking confident. Several were unconsciously backing away from Marcus, their species' instincts finally recognizing what their minds have been trained to ignore. You want to challenge me? Marcus asked, looking directly at Vextar. You want to avenge your uncle's honor? I'm happy to accept, but understand what you're asking for. This won't be an academy sparring match with rules and referees. Marcus stepped closer to the massive Kethani, completely unintimidated by the four-armed giant. If you challenge me, I will treat you as a threat to my survival, and I will respond accordingly. Vextar's skin went completely white, the color of fear among his people. That's what I thought, Marcus said. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. You might want to warn the other senior students. The Academy has 11 more humans enrolled this cycle. And after word of yesterday's lesson spreads, I have a feeling they're going to start remembering what they really are. As Marcus walked away, he could hear heated whispers behind him in a dozen different languages. By the time he reached the military strategy classroom, his hands had stopped shaking from adrenaline. He was beginning to understand something that the Academy had never intended him to learn. Humans weren't the weakest species in the galaxy. They were the most controlled. But that control was starting to slip. Commander Rextai was already in the classroom when Marcus arrived, his massive Dominion fleet uniform making him an imposing figure even by Academy standards. The Thekari commander was renowned throughout known space as one of the greatest military minds of the current era, his tactical brilliance having secured victory in dozens of campaigns across the galactic rim. The classroom was arranged in an amphitheater style, with 40 seats arranged in ascending rows around a central holographic projector. As students filed in, Marcus noticed that word of his confrontation in the plaza had already spread. Several students were giving him nervous glances. Today, Commander Rextai began once everyone was seated. We will examine the fundamental principles of warfare as practiced by the great military powers of the galaxy. The holographic projector activated, showing the insignia of the major galactic powers, the Chthoni hegemony, the Serpentine Empire, the Ursinian Confederacy, and others. Each of these civilizations has refined the art of war over thousands of years, Rextai continued. They have developed sophisticated strategies, advanced technologies, and disciplined armies that have maintained galactic peace for over 7 centuries. A student raised her hand. Kiritich, a Veltar whose crystalline structure chimed softly when she moved. Commander, what role do newer species play in galactic military strategy? Rextai's expression remained neutral, but Marcus caught a slight pause before he answered. Newer species typically serve in support roles while they develop proper military traditions. It takes time for a civilization to understand the sophisticated nature of galactic warfare. What about humans? Asked another student. They're new to the galactic community, but seem to have extensive military history. Now Marcus definitely saw Rextai hesitate. Human military history is unique. Their homeworld conditions created certain aggressive tendencies that required careful management upon their introduction to galactic society. Marcus stood up. Commander, may I ask what you mean by careful management? Every eye in the classroom turned to him. Rextai's expression became even more carefully neutral. Simply that human integration into galactic civilization required certain adjustments to your natural tendencies. Mr. Chun. What kind of adjustments? The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Rextai was clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Perhaps we should focus on today's lesson plan, he said finally. But Marcus wasn't going to let it go. Commander, according to Academy records, humans come from a Class 12 death world. Our species survived and thrived in conditions that would kill most galactic life. Surely that experience would be valuable in military planning. Mr. Chun, Rextai said firmly, human experience on your homeworld is not applicable to modern galactic warfare. Why not? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Commander Rextai was one of the most respected military minds in known space. He had commanded fleets in battles across dozens of systems. He was not accustomed to being questioned by first-year students, especially humans. Because, he said slowly, modern warfare requires discipline, strategy, and restraint. Human military history suggests a different approach. Marcus felt that familiar cold settling in his stomach. What approach would that be, Commander? Rextai activated the holographic display, bringing up a series of historical battle scenarios. Galactic warfare is conducted according to established principles. Clearly defined objectives, proportional responses, and minimal collateral damage. The display showed elegant fleet maneuvers, precise tactical strikes, and battles that looked more like elaborate dances than actual combat. These conflicts are resolved through superior strategy and technology with minimal loss of life on all sides. It's civilized warfare. Civilized, Marcus repeated. Commander, may I ask how many of these galactic wars resulted in the complete defeat of one side? Rextai frowned. Complete defeat is rarely necessary. Most conflicts end through negotiation once military superiority is established. So the losing side retreats, regroups, and tries again later? Sometimes, yes. It's part of the natural cycle of galactic politics. Marcus nodded slowly. Commander, would you like to see some examples of human military history? Before Rextai could object, Marcus had accessed the classroom's database through his personal interface. The holographic display shifted to show a series of Earth's historical conflicts. This is the Battle of Thermopylae, Marcus said, highlighting an ancient battlefield. 300 Spartans held off an army of hundreds of thousands for 3 days. They fought to the last man rather than retreat. He shifted to another scene. The siege of Stalingrad. Humans fought house to house, room to room, for months in conditions that would have killed most galactic species. Neither side would surrender. Another image. The Battle of Britain. Humans flew aircraft against impossible odds for months, never considering defeat an option. The classroom was completely silent as image after image of human warfare filled the display. Rextai's expression was growing increasingly disturbed. This is Iwo Jima. Humans fought for every meter of ground for over a month. Casualty rates exceeded 60% on both sides. Marcus paused the display. Commander, do you notice anything different about human warfare compared to galactic conflicts? Rextai's voice was barely above a whisper. The casualty rates are astronomical. Because humans don't fight civilized wars, Marcus said. We fight total wars. When humans go to war, we don't stop until our enemies are completely defeated or we are all dead. There is no middle ground. He brought up another series of images. World War I, 20 million dead. World War II, 80 million dead. And those were just conflicts between human nations. The numbers were staggering. Several alien students looked physically ill at the thought of such massive casualties. When humans fight, we don't fight for territory or resources or political advantage. Marcus continued. We fight for survival. And when your survival is at stake, there are no rules. Rextai finally found his voice. Mr. Chun, such warfare is barbaric. It goes against every principle of civilized conflict resolution. You're right, Commander. It is barbaric, but it's also effective. Marcus gestured to the images still floating in the holographic display. Every one of these conflicts ended with complete victory for one side. No ongoing disputes, no cycles of revenge, no unresolved territorial claims. The defeated side was either destroyed or so thoroughly defeated that they never posed a threat again. He turned to face the class. That's what humans bring to galactic warfare. Not just aggression, but the willingness to pay any price for total victory. A Zephyrian student near the back of the room spoke in its musical voice. But such warfare would destroy civilization. The cost would be unbearable, which is why humans are kept out of galactic conflicts, Marcus replied. Because if we were allowed to fight our way, there would be no galactic civilization left. Commander Rextai stut adruptly. Mr. Chun, I think you've shared enough for today. But Marcus wasn't finished. Commander, there's one more thing the class should know. Mr. Chun, every human conflict I just showed you, we were fighting other humans. Can you imagine what would happen if humans fought an alien species that we perceived as a genuine threat to our survival? The classroom erupted in frightened chatter from a dozen different species. Commander Rextai's expression had gone beyond disturbed to genuinely alarmed. That's enough, he said firmly. Class dismissed. But as students filed out in hurried, nervous groups, Marcus could see the fear in their eyes. For the first time, they were beginning to understand what humans really were. And they were terrified. The Academy's administrative offices occupied the highest levels of Kepler Station, their transparent aluminum windows offering a stunning view of the nebula that surrounded the facility in brilliant purple and gold clouds. Dean Mordak sat behind his massive desk, his 8 tentacles moving in patterns of deep concern as he reviewed the reports flooding his neural interface. As a member of the ancient cephalopod collective, Mordak had overseen the Academy for over 3 centuries. His species was renowned throughout the galaxy for their wisdom, patience, and ability to see long-term consequences that escaped other civilizations. It was why the collective had been entrusted with managing the Academy and its delicate mission of integrating new species into galactic society. That mission was currently in jeopardy. Show me the incident reports again, he commanded, his chromatophores shifting to the deep blue of concentration. The holographic display materialized above his desk, showing a cascade of documents that had accumulated in just the past 8 hours. Professor Zach Th hospitalized with multiple fractures. A confrontation between human student Marcus Chun and 5 senior students that had required security intervention to prevent violence. 3 separate complaints from instructors about aggressive human behavior in their classes. But most concerning of all were the communication intercepts. Display the intercepted transmissions, Mordak ordered. The hologram shifted to show communication logs from the Academy's monitoring systems. Students from across the galaxy were sending messages to their homeworlds, and the content was deeply troubling. The humans are not what we believed, read one message from a Kethanese student to his clan leaders. They may pose a significant threat, if not properly contained. Another, from a Serpentine Empire noble, request immediate recall from Academy. Human students displaying dangerous behavioral patterns. And, perhaps most damaging, recommend immediate review of human integration protocols. Current containment measures may be insufficient. Mordak's tentacles writhed with agitation. The careful balance that had taken decades to establish was crumbling in a single day, all because one human student had decided to stop playing by the rules. A chime indicated an incoming priority communication. Mordak accepted the call, and the imposing figure of Admiral Kesthar materialized in the office's communication alcove. The Kethani fleet commander's exoskeleton bore the battle scars of a dozen campaigns, and his forearms moved with the controlled precision of a lifetime warrior. Dean Mordak. The Admiral's voice carried the clicking undertones of barely controlled rage. I understand one of your human students attacked my nephew. Admiral, the situation is being investigated. Professor Zakhtich lies in your medical bay with shattered bones, Kessler interrupted. My grandnephew Vextar reports being threatened with death by the same human. This goes far beyond an academy disciplinary matter. Mordak's chromatophores shifted to diplomatic yellow. Admiral, I assure you that appropriate measures are being taken. What measures? Another voice cut through the communication. Empress Silandra of the Serpentine Empire materialized beside the Admiral, her scales gleaming with the aggressive orange of her species in combat mode. My intelligence services report that human students across the Academy are beginning to exhibit similar behavioral patterns. More figures appeared in the communication alcove as the call expanded to include other galactic leaders. General Rex Tonto of the Ursinian Confederacy, his massive frame bristling with barely contained aggression. Prime Minister Yethera of the Veltar Harmonies, her crystalline form resonating with distressed musical tones. Commander Zexkai of the Mantari Hives, her compound eyes reflecting patterns of deep concern. This is what we warned about when human integration began, Admiral Kesthar continued. Their species is fundamentally incompatible with civilized society. The containment protocols were working, General Rex Tonto added. Convince them they're weak, keep their numbers limited, and maintain strict oversight. But something has changed. Dean Mordak found himself at the center of a crisis that threatened the stability of galactic civilization. Leaders, please. One incident does not constitute a systemic failure. One incident. Empress Silandra's scales shifted to a dangerous red. Dean, are you aware that human colony ships are departing Earth at an unprecedented rate? That they're establishing settlements on worlds we've classified as uninhabitable? The Dean's tentacles went very still. I was not aware of increased human expansion. Commander Zexkai stepped forward, her mandibles clicking with agitation. Our intelligence networks report that humans have established successful colonies on 17 worlds in the past year alone. Worlds with radiation levels, atmospheric compositions, and gravity fields that would kill most galactic life forms. They're not just surviving on these worlds, Prime Minister Yethera added, her musical tones carrying notes of fear. They're thriving. Their population growth rates are exceeding all projections. Admiral Kesthar leaned forward, his forearms spread in a gesture of barely controlled aggression. Dean Mordak, when the Academy was established, we agreed that human integration would be carefully managed. Limited numbers, controlled expansion, and constant oversight to prevent their aggressive tendencies from destabilizing galactic peace. The agreement stands, Mordak began. The agreement is failing. General Rex Tonto interrupted. Our containment strategy was based on convincing humans they were inferior to galactic species. But what happens when they stop believing that lie? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. For decades, the galaxy's leadership had maintained peace through a careful balance of power between the major species. Each civilization had its role, its territory, and its limitations. The system worked because everyone understood and accepted their place. Humans have been assigned the role of junior partners, useful for their adaptability and work ethic, but kept deliberately weak and dependent on galactic technology and approval. The Academy was a key part of that strategy, designed to take humanity's most promising individuals and convince them that galactic civilization was superior to human capabilities. But Marcus Chun had broken that conditioning. And worse, he was spreading his revelations to other humans. "What are you proposing?" Dean Mordak asked quietly. Empress Silandra exchanged glances with the other leaders before responding. "The human students must be removed from the Academy immediately. All of them." "On what grounds?" "Violent behavior," Admiral Kestar said. "Security threats. Academic insufficiency. The specific reason doesn't matter." Commander Zexkai clicked her mandibles in agreement. "The priority is preventing further contamination of their thinking. If these humans return to their worlds with accurate knowledge of galactic power structures." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the communication understood the implications. "You're asking me to destroy the academic careers of 12 promising students based on the actions of one individual," Mordak said. "We're asking you to prevent a galactic war," General Rex Tonto replied bluntly. The accusation hit Mordak like a physical blow. His tentacles shifted to the pale green of shock. "General, surely you're being hyperbolic, am I?" Rex Tonto activated his own holographic display, showing military intelligence reports. Human fleet construction has increased by 400% in the past 2 years. Their colony ships are equipped with military-grade shielding and weapon systems. They're expanding faster than any species in recorded history. Empress Silandra added her own data. Human diplomatic protocols have become increasingly aggressive. They're demanding equal representation in galactic councils, trade agreements that favor their expansion, and military cooperation treaties that would give them access to our advanced technologies. Admiral Kestar's display showed the most alarming information of all. Human military doctrine has shifted from defensive to what they call power projection. They're building deep space bases, establishing patrol routes, and conducting exercises that simulate attacks on established galactic territories. Prime Minister Yithara's crystal form chimed with distressed harmonics. The pattern is clear. Humans are preparing for conflict. Dean Mordak studied the data with growing horror. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity wasn't just expanding, they were preparing for war. And if what Marcus Chun had demonstrated was true, if humans were actually the product of a Class 12 death world with capabilities far beyond what the galaxy had assumed. "How long do we have?" he asked quietly. "Human expansion rates suggest they'll achieve military parity with the major powers within 20 years, Admiral Kestar replied. "Potentially much sooner if they develop their own advanced technologies instead of depending on ours." Commander Zexkai's compound eyes reflected patterns of deep concern. But the immediate threat is ideological. If human students return to their worlds believing they're superior to galactic civilization, they'll share that belief with others, General Rex Tonto finished. And if humans lose their sense of inferiority, they'll have no reason to accept their current limitations. Empress Silandra's scales had shifted to the deep red of decision. The human students must be expelled immediately, and we need to implement stronger containment measures for the human species as a whole. "What kind of measures?" Mordak asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Economic sanctions to limit their expansion," Admiral Kestar said. "Technology restrictions to prevent them from achieving military parity. Diplomatic isolation to limit their influence on other species. And if they resist..." The silence that followed was answer enough. The galactic powers were preparing for the possibility that humanity might need to be forcibly contained or eliminated. Dean Mordak closed his eyes, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on him. The Academy had been his life's work, a place where young minds from across the galaxy could learn, grow, and build the foundations of lasting peace. The idea of using it as an instrument of oppression went against everything he believed. But the alternative might be worse. "I need time to consider," he began. "Time we don't have." Empress Cylinder interrupted. Every day those humans remain at the Academy increases the risk of further incidents. The situation must be resolved immediately. As if summoned by her words, another chime indicated an urgent communication. Dean Mordak accepted the call, and the image of Academy Security Chief Torval appeared. Dean, the Kethani security officer said, his skin shifting to the orange of extreme concern, we have a situation developing in the main dining hall. Mordak's tentacles drooped with resignation. What kind of situation? The human students have gathered together and are talking. Other students are avoiding them completely. Several species have requested immediate dormitory transfers to avoid proximity to humans. Are the humans being threatening? No, sir. That's what's concerning. They're just sitting together, having what appears to be a normal conversation. But the effect on the rest of the student body is significant. Through the communication link, Dean Mordak could see the fear in his security chief's eyes. Torval was a veteran of multiple conflicts, trained to handle the galaxy's most dangerous situations. But 12 human teenagers sitting together and talking had him terrified. I'll be right there, Mordak said. As the communication ended, he found himself facing the assembled leaders of galactic civilization. Their expressions ranged from concerned to openly hostile, but all carried the same message. The human problem had to be solved. Now, Dean Mordak, Admiral Kesthar said formally, the Kethani hegemony formally requests the immediate expulsion of all human students from the Academy. The Serpentine Empire seconds that request, Empress Cylinder added. The Ursinian Confederacy agrees, General Rex Tonto rumbled. One by one, the other leaders added their voices to the demand. Within minutes, every major galactic power had officially requested that humans be removed from the Academy. Dean Mordak looked at the faces surrounding him, beings he had worked with for decades, allies in the cause of galactic peace and cooperation. Now, they were united in their fear of a species they had once dismissed as harmless. I'll review the situation and make a decision within 24 hours, he said finally. Dean, Admiral Kesthar's voice carried a note of warning. The safety of the Academy and the stability of galactic civilization may depend on swift action. The communication ended, leaving Mordak alone in his office with the weight of an impossible decision. Through his windows, the nebula continued its ancient dance of creation and destruction, beautiful and terrible in its cosmic indifference. He activated his personal communicator and sent a message to all department heads. Emergency faculty meeting in 1 hour. Priority Alpha protocols. Then, he began the long walk to the dining hall, where 12 human students were apparently causing a crisis simply by existing. The main dining hall was a marvel of engineering, designed to accommodate the dietary and social needs of over 40 different species. Specialized atmospheric zones maintained different gas mixtures. Gravity fields could be adjusted for various physical requirements, and the food synthesis systems could produce nutritionally appropriate meals for any known biology. Under normal circumstances, it was a vibrant symbol of galactic cooperation, with students from dozens of worlds sharing meals and conversation in peaceful harmony. Today, it looked like a war zone. The human students sat together at a single table in the center of the hall, engaged in what appeared to be a calm, quiet conversation. But around them, the rest of the dining hall had effectively segregated itself. Species that had mingled freely for decades were now clustered in single-species groups, casting nervous glances toward the human table. Security personnel were stationed at every entrance, their weapons clearly visible. Additional guards patrolled the perimeter of the dining hall, their attention focused solely on the 12 humans. Dean Mordak entered through the main entrance, his tentacles shifting to diplomatic blue as he assessed the situation. The tension in the room was palpable. He could feel it in the electromagnetic fields generated by the various species' nervous systems. As he approached the human table, conversations throughout the hall died away. By the time he reached Marcus Chun and his classmates, the entire dining hall was silent except for the hum of environmental systems. Mr. Chun, Mordak said formally, May I join you? Marcus looked up from his meal, standard Academy protein synthesis with Earth-appropriate seasoning. His expression was calm, almost peaceful, but there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. Of course, Dean Mordak. We be honored. The other human students shifted to make room, and Mordak settled his bulk onto a chair designed to accommodate his species' unique physiology. Up close, he could see that the humans appeared completely relaxed and normal. There was no sign of aggressive behavior or threatening postures, which somehow made the situation even more terrifying. I understand there was an incident in Professor Zach TH's class yesterday. Mordak began. Educational demonstration, Marcus replied calmly. The professor wanted to show the class about human physiology. I was happy to help. And today's events? Sarah Kim, the girl from Mars, answered this time. We've been having very enlightening conversations with our classmates, learning a lot about galactic perspectives on human capabilities. Mordak's tentacles shifted to a concerned yellow. There was something fundamentally different about these students compared to yesterday. They seemed awakened. Mr. Chun, he said carefully, I've received reports that you've been sharing information about human history and capabilities with other students. Just answering questions, Dean. Our classmates seemed genuinely interested in learning about Earth and human development. David Okafor leaned forward slightly. It's fascinating, really. We discovered that most galactic species have completely inaccurate information about human capabilities. We've been helping to correct those misconceptions. The word misconceptions hung in the air like a challenge. Around the dining hall, alien students were straining to hear the conversation, their various species' enhanced hearing picking up every word. What kind of misconceptions? Mordak asked, though he dreaded the answer. Marcus smiled, and, for the first time, Mordak understood why his security chief was terrified. It wasn't an aggressive or threatening expression. It was the smile of someone who had discovered something wonderful and wanted to share it. Well, for example, Marcus said, most students here believe humans are fragile. But when we explained that Earth has 2.3 times galactic standard gravity, several of our classmates realized that every human here is essentially a strength-enhanced super soldier by their standards. Sarah nodded enthusiastically, and when we mentioned that our atmosphere would be toxic to most species, they started to understand why human endurance capabilities are so unusual. The really interesting part, David added, is when we started comparing military histories. Most galactic conflicts are resolved through negotiation or limited engagement. Human conflicts. He paused, shaking his head in amazement. Let's just say our approach to warfare is quite different. Mordak felt his chromatophores shifting to the pale green of shock. These students weren't angry or aggressive. They were excited. They had discovered the truth about human capabilities and were thrilled to share their newfound knowledge, which was exactly what the galactic powers feared most. Students, he said carefully, I think it's important that you understand the delicate nature of human integration into galactic society. 12 pairs of human eyes focused on him with uncomfortable intensity. There was an intelligence in those gazes that seemed to see right through diplomatic doublespeak. Delicate how, Dean? Marcus asked quietly. Mordak found himself at a crossroads. He could continue the charade that had maintained Galactic,